I was standing in formation when I realized nobody was coming. 300 recruits lined up in dress uniform at Fort Moore. Bleachers packed behind us. Mothers crying. Fathers whistling. Kids with homemade signs. I could hear the crowd before the ceremony started. But I'd stopped looking for my family by then. I'd given my father the seat number 6 weeks earlier. Section F. Row 3. Seats 7, 8, and 9. 3 chairs for my mother, my father, and my sister. During the graduation ceremony, I looked over my shoulder once to check. All 3 were empty. A stranger's mother found me after it was over. I was still holding my certificate, watching other recruits disappear into walls of hugs. She put her hand on my shoulder and said, "We're proud of you, honey." I thanked her and meant it. 3 days later, Jake picked me up at Lambert Airport. He held a handmade sign that said PFC Barrett, and a grin that made the whole terminal disappear for a second. He'd been home the entire time. He knew where my family was. He didn't say it until we were in the car. "I'm sorry they didn't come, Tori." "I know." My mother texted the next morning. "Sorry, honey. Dad's helping Megan with the venue deposit. We'll celebrate when you're home. You understand, right?" I understood. I'd been understanding my entire life. My father made $62,000 a year as a plumber. He owned his house, drove a truck he washed every Sunday. He kept a running tab of every dollar he'd spent on his children, not on paper but in his head. He never let you forget the total. My mother was a homemaker who deferred every decision to my father. She had opinions. She kept them in the same place she kept the good china, behind glass. My sister Megan was 3 years older than me and got everything first. New prom dress, first car, college fund. When she needed help, our parents appeared. When I needed help, my father said, "You're smart. You'll figure it out." So I did. I put myself through college, worked 3 jobs simultaneously, got my logistics degree, spent my 20s catching up for what should have been paid for when I was 18. I enlisted at 28 because I wanted structure, purpose, and a place where showing up actually meant something. Before I shipped out to Fort Moore, I set up an automatic transfer from my checking account to my father's for $100 a month. He never asked for it directly. Every Thanksgiving, he'd mention property taxes. Every birthday, he'd talk about how tight things were. So I set it up. An automated guilt payment that arrived on the 1st of every month like clockwork. I also paid off Megan's credit card twice. $1,200 the first time. $2,300 the second. She said she'd pay me back. She never mentioned it again. Now I was home. The graduation was behind me. 3 empty chairs, 1 postcard from Jake that said, "Proud of you," and a house that felt different than it had before I left. Jake and I had bought it 2 years earlier with his VA loan and my savings. Our house. Our money. Our risk. 2 weeks after I got home, I asked Jake about the garage. He'd mentioned something on the phone during training, but he downplayed it. "Your dad brought over some stuff. Said he needed the room." I opened the garage door and stopped walking. Ray had moved in half his shed. 3 fishing rods mounted on a wall rack he'd drilled into my drywall. A red Craftsman tool chest, 6 drawers loaded. A mini fridge plugged into my outlet humming. A folding table with his tackle box open on top. Jake came up behind me. "Yeah, that happened about week 3. He drilled into your wall. He had the spare key. He came over when you were at work." I called my father that evening and kept my voice level. "Dad, you put a lot of your stuff in our garage. Had the key, didn't I? House was sitting empty half the day. Needed the room. You drilled into the drywall. It's just a couple of anchors. Calm down." I didn't argue. I hung up and spent the next 45 minutes photographing every item. Timestamps. Conditions. Estimated values. 3 pages on a yellow legal pad. Then I canceled the automatic transfer. Effective immediately. No announcement. I just turned off the faucet and waited to see how long it would take them to notice. 11 days. My mother called on day 11. Tori, honey, your father checked the account. The deposit didn't come through this month. I stopped it. Silence. The kind where you hear someone recalculating in real time. You can't do that. Your father depends on that money. He makes $62,000 a year. He paid off the house in 2019. His truck is 3 years old. He doesn't depend on my $400. That's not the point. Family helps family. Family shows up. You didn't show up to my graduation. She went quiet. Then the pivot came smooth and practiced. After everything we've done for you, Tori, name one thing you did for me that you didn't do for Megan. She couldn't. My father called 10 minutes later. What's this about you cutting off the money? I stopped the auto transfer. Your sister's wedding is in 2 months. You're pulling this now. Megan's wedding has nothing to do with my bank account. Family steps up, Tori. You didn't step up to my graduation, Dad. 5 seconds of silence. Then the line went dead. I set the phone down. Jake looked up from the couch. That went well. About how I expected. 3 weeks later, on a Saturday morning in October, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Text from Dad. Tori, I need $8,000 for your sister's wedding. Venue deposit due Friday. Send it to my account. I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand it. Because I wanted to make sure I wasn't misreading the audacity. No greeting. No how are you. Just I need and send it. I walked over to Jake. He read it, set down his tablet, took off his glasses. He can't be serious. He's completely serious. I opened Instagram. Megan's latest post from the day before. Mirror selfie in a bridal boutique, trying on a gown with the cathedral train. Price tag still visible. $4,200. Our father was texting me for $8,000 while Megan tried on $1,000 dresses. I walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stood under the water for 12 minutes. Not crying. Calculating. $12,000 in auto transfers over 30 months. $3,500 in credit card bailouts for Megan. $0 contributed to my college. 0 family members at my graduation. And now $8,000 more delivered not as a request, but as a directive. I turned off the water, dried my face, looked in the mirror. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Jake was still at the kitchen table when I came out. He'd poured me a fresh cup of coffee. What do you want to do? That was Jake. No lectures. No leading questions. Just an open door. I'm thinking about giving my father exactly what he's worth. He watched me for a moment. Then the corner of his mouth twitched. Not a smile. Recognition. He'd seen me make decisions like this before. You sure? I've never been more sure about anything. He got up, kissed the top of my head and went back to the couch. I opened the Venmo app. My thumbs hovered over the keypad. I typed $8. In the memo line I wrote, "Best wishes." My thumb hovered over the green send button for about 10 seconds. Jake looked up from his book. He didn't say anything. He just raised his eyebrows. I pressed send. The confirmation popped up. $8 sent to Ray Barrett. Best wishes. I set the phone down and went back to the stove. The eggs were cold. I scraped them into the trash and started fresh. 47 minutes of silence. Missed call from Dad. Then another. Then a third. Then a text from Mom. Call your father immediately. Then Megan. Are you serious right now, Tori? I didn't answer any of them. I turned the ringer off and put the phone in the kitchen drawer next to the dead batteries and old menus. Jake and I ate breakfast. Scrambled eggs. Toast. Orange juice. We talked about replacing the kitchen faucet and whether Biscuit needed a vet appointment. Normal things. Quiet things. That evening I checked the phone. 11 missed calls. 6 texts. 1 voicemail that ended with, "You have 1 week to fix this, or you can forget you have a father." I put the phone back in the drawer. The family group chat exploded that night. Megan screenshotted my Venmo payment and dropped it into the chat with no caption. Just the image. $8. Best wishes. The responses came fast. Aunt Gloria. That's cruel, Tori. Your father asked for help and you mocked him. Uncle Frank. He asked nicely. You should be ashamed of yourself. My mother. I raised you better than this. 14 messages in 20 minutes. Selfish. Ungrateful. Tearing the family apart. Not one of them asked why. Not one of them questioned whether asking an Army specialist for $8,000 3 weeks after her graduation was reasonable. Then I saw the comment that stopped me cold. Uncle Frank replying to the screenshot. Ray still has the key to her house. Maybe he should go over and talk to her in person. I read it 3 times. My father had a key to my house. My uncle was suggesting he use it to show up uninvited. And nobody in the chat saw anything wrong with that. I looked at Jake across the living room. He was scrolling through his phone, half paying attention. I held mine up so he could see the screen. He read Frank's message. His jaw tightened. We need to change the locks, I said. He was already reaching for his jacket. Tonight. He nodded. I'll be back in 30 minutes. The door closed behind him. I sat in the quiet house and listened to the deadbolt he was about to replace. Jake came back from Home Depot with a bag. New quickset deadbolt. New keypad lock. New code for the garage opener. He started on the front door first, on his knees in the porch light while I handed him tools. While he drilled, I went to the garage. I cataloged everything my father had left behind. Photographed every item. Date stamp. Time stamp. Every angle. I wrote a list on a legal pad. Item. Condition. Estimated value. I put the list in a manila folder and set it on the kitchen counter. Then I texted Ray. Your personal items are in our garage. You have 7 days to arrange pickup during daylight hours. We will be home. Call first. No response. Jake finished the front door by 9:15. He moved to the garage keypad. Changed the code. Tested it twice. Then he checked every window lock in the house because that was who Jake was. At 9:40 he came back to the living room. All done. New deadbolt. New knob. New garage code. Thank you. He sat down next to me. I found something in your dad's tool chest. He held up a key. Brass. Fresh cut. A copy of the spare key. Hidden in the bottom drawer under a shop rack. A copy of the copy. My father had made a backup key to my house without telling me. I took it from Jake and dropped it in the trash can. That night I scrolled backward through the family group chat. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe evidence. Maybe context. Maybe I just needed to see the pattern. I found it 4 months back. A conversation from the week I announced my enlistment. Megan. If Tori's going to basic, who's going to help with my wedding? My mother. Don't worry, she'll still send money. She always does. My father, typed at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. 6 words. That girl has been our backup plan since she got her first job at 16. Backup plan. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. I scrolled further. 2 years earlier, a conversation about Megan needing a car. Ray. Megan needs the car. Tori can figure it out. She always does. She's always fine. Because I had to be. Because nobody gave me the option not to be. I sat in my car in the dark garage. The new garage code glowed green on the keypad. The engine was off. The overhead light had timed out. I was sitting in the dark reading messages I was never meant to see. My mother's words from graduation echoed back. You understand, right? Now I understood. I understood everything. I was never the daughter they forgot. I was the daughter they counted on forgetting herself. I let myself cry for about 5 minutes. Then I stopped, wiped my face with my sleeve. 3 slow breaths. I had cried enough for people who never cried for me. I went inside. Jake was at the kitchen table with his laptop. I set my phone on the table and slid it toward him. Read the screenshots. He picked it up. Scrolled. His face didn't change much. But I knew his tells. The way his jaw shifted. The way his breathing slowed down. He was angry. But he held it the way he held everything. Steady. Contained. He set the phone down. Backup plan. Since you were 16 apparently. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't say what I should do. He just put his hand on mine. We sat like that for a while. I started making a list in my head. Every time I had been the one to figure it out. The hand-me-down dresses. The scholarships I applied for because they wouldn't pay. Every phone call home spent listening to Megan's plans instead of anyone asking about mine. The prom. The car. The apartment deposit. The credit card bailouts. The auto transfer. $15,500. That was the number. I'm done understanding, I said. Jake squeezed my hand once. What's next? His stuff is still in the garage. He has 4 more days to pick it up. And if he doesn't, then he doesn't. I rinsed my coffee mug and went to bed. I slept hard that night. Dreamless. 4 days left on the clock. Day 5. I came home from the logistics office on base. Jake's truck was in the driveway. Inside, he was at the kitchen table with his laptop open. He turned it toward me without saying anything. Ring doorbell footage. Timestamp 2:17 that afternoon. My father's truck pulling into the driveway. Ray getting out. Walking to the garage. Punching the old code into the keypad. Wrong. Trying again. Wrong. A third time. Wrong. He walked to the front door. Inserted the old key, turned it. Nothing. The deadbolt held. He stepped back. Looked at the door like it had personally insulted him. Then he walked back to the garage and kicked it. One hard kick right at the base. The camera caught the impact and the scuff mark his boot left on the white paint. He stood in the driveway for 20 minutes. Just stood there. Then he got in his truck and drove away. 20 minutes later, a text from Ray. Open the door, Tori. This is ridiculous. I just want my stuff. I replied. Call first. We'll be home. Daylight hours. Ray. I don't need permission to go to my daughter's house. Me. It's not your house, Dad. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then nothing. Jake photographed the scuff mark that evening and added it to the manila folder. Date. Time. Description. I wasn't collecting evidence because I expected a fight. I was collecting evidence because the Army had taught me something a supply sergeant said on my 3rd day. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. Everything had happened. I had the paper to prove it. Day 6. My mother showed up at Fort Scott, the military installation where I worked. She couldn't get past the gate. Civilian visitors needed military sponsorship. So she parked in the visitor lot and called my cell. I walked out to the parking lot in my duty uniform. Diane was leaning against her Camry, arms crossed, eyes red. Your father can't sleep, she said before I reached the car. He's barely eating. You're tearing this family apart. He tore it apart when he skipped my graduation to go dress shopping with Megan. That's not fair. Megan needed me that day. I needed you too, Mom. I stood in front of 300 soldiers with nobody in my section. A stranger's mother hugged me and told me she was proud of me. Diane's lip quivered. For a second I thought she might actually hear me. Then the quiver hardened into something else. If you don't give your father the money, he's going to take it personally. You know how he gets. There it was. Not an apology. Not an acknowledgement. A warning wrapped in the language of concern but carrying the weight of a threat. He can get however he wants, Mom. The answer is no. She stared at me for a long time. Then she got into her car, closed the door, and drove away without another word. I stood in the parking lot and watched her Camry disappear down the access road. She had driven 45 minutes to cry in a parking lot. She had never driven 4 hours to watch me graduate. I went back inside and sat at my desk. My hands were shaking, but my voice hadn't cracked once. I held on to that. Day 7 was the deadline. Ray never called to arrange a pickup time. Never texted. Never sent anyone on his behalf. I sent one final message that morning. The 7-day window has expired. Your items are boxed and in the garage. You can arrange a supervised pickup this weekend. After Sunday, I'm donating what's left. His reply came in under 2 minutes. You don't get to throw away my property. That's theft. I showed Jake the text. It's not theft if we gave him a week and documented everything, he said. I knew that. But I also knew my father wasn't making a legal argument. He was making a power play. The same move he'd been running since I was 16. Declare ownership over something that didn't belong to him and dare someone to push back. That afternoon, I organized the documentation one final time. Every text message printed and dated. Ring doorbell footage saved to a USB drive. Photographs of every item with timestamps. The yellow legal pad with the itemized list. The scuff mark photo. My original text setting the deadline. His failure to respond. I put everything in the manila folder and set it on the kitchen table. Jake looked at it. That's thorough. Everything happened. I've got the paper to prove it. Saturday morning, Jake and I were both home. The house was clean. The folder was on the table. The new deadbolt was locked. The doorbell rang at 9:15. My father stood on the porch in his work boots and a flannel shirt. Hands at his sides, jaw set. Behind him in the driveway, my mother sat in the passenger seat with the engine running. I want my stuff, he said. Come in through the front. We'll walk you to the garage. He didn't move. I'm not being escorted in my own daughter's house like a criminal. You're not being escorted. We're being present. Those are different things. He looked past me at Jake standing in the hallway. Something shifted in his expression. Calculation. Then he stepped through the door. We walked him to the garage. Jake opened it from the inside panel. The boxes were lined up against the wall. Neat. Labeled. Every fishing rod wrapped in bubble wrap and tagged. The tool chest wiped down, drawers closed. The mini fridge unplugged, cleaned and defrosted. The tackle box latched and set on top. Ray stopped in the doorway and stared. He had expected chaos. He had expected his things thrown into garbage bags or piled in the driveway. He had expected to be outraged. Instead, everything was cataloged, organized, ready for pickup. Military precision. He didn't say thank you. He walked to the tool chest first and opened the bottom drawer. Felt around under the lining. Looked up at me. The key's gone. I found it, Jake said. We disposed of it. Ray's nostrils flared. He closed the drawer and started loading the truck. I handed him items as he needed them. Neither of us spoke. The only sounds were the scrape of boxes on concrete and the tailgate groaning under the weight. Halfway through he stopped. He turned around slowly, leaned against the tailgate, crossed his arms. You think you're so smart. Changed the locks, cut off the money. Sent your mother away crying from a parking lot. I said nothing. Waited. I raised you, Tori. I put food on the table for 18 years. I kept a roof over your head. I taught you how to ride a bike and how to change a tire. And this is what I get. $8 and a deadbolt. You didn't come to my graduation, Dad. He waved his hand like I'd said something trivial. It was basic training. That's not a real graduation. Your sister's wedding was a real event. A real milestone. Jake stepped forward. Sir, with all due respect, your daughter served her country. That ceremony was real. Ray's finger came up, pointed at Jake's chest. This is between me and my daughter. Stay out of it. I stepped between them. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just moved into the space. Jake is my family, Dad. He showed up. You didn't. Ray's hand dropped. His face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise. Anger. Then something I'd never seen before. Something close to fear. The fear of a man who had just realized his authority had no walls left to echo off of. He loaded the last box without a word. Slammed the tailgate. Got in the truck. My mother stared straight ahead through the windshield. She didn't look at me. The truck pulled away. The street went quiet. Monday afternoon, my desk phone rang at the logistics office. The receptionist. Specialist Barrett, there's a call for you on line 2. It's the Collinsville Police Department. My stomach dropped, then steadied. Officer Davis with the Collinsville Police Department. We received a complaint from a Raymond Barrett regarding property at your residence on Elm Street. He's alleging theft of personal belongings and unauthorized lockout from the premises. I sat up straight, squared my shoulders. My voice came out level and clear. Officer, I can explain the situation. Would you prefer to discuss this at the house? We're sending someone over now. Can you meet us there in about 30 minutes? Yes, ma'am. I'll be there. I hung up. Took one breath. Called Jake. My dad called the police on us. 2 seconds of silence. I'll have the documentation ready. Meet you at home. The drive home was 14 minutes. I kept both hands on the wheel. I checked my mirrors. I drove the speed limit. He hadn't called the police because I stole anything. Not because I threatened anyone. Not because I committed a crime. Because I stopped giving. Because I changed a lock. Because I sent $8 instead of $8,000 and told the truth in a group chat. He had used every weapon in his arsenal. Guilt. Family pressure. My mother's tears. My sister's ultimatum. The spare key. The garage invasion. The threat to disown me. None of it worked. So he called the cops. I pulled into the driveway at 3:42. A squad car was parked in front of the house. Jake's truck was already there. The porch light was on. I turned off the engine. Gathered myself. Walked to the front door. It was time to finish this. 2 officers stood in the foyer. Officer Davis was a woman about my age. Dark hair pulled back. Professional. Her partner, Officer Chun, was taller, quieter, holding a notepad. Ma'am, we received a complaint, Davis said. Mind if we sit down? Of course. Can I get you anything? Water. We're fine. Thank you. We sat at the dining table. Jake was already there with the manila folder open. He laid out the documents in order like a brief, like a supply chain audit. Officers, my husband has some documentation you might find relevant. Davis looked at the folder, then at Jake. He slid it across. First page. The text message setting the 7-day pickup deadline. Date stamped. Screenshot printed. Second page. Ring doorbell footage stills. Ray attempting the old code 3 times. Trying the old key. Kicking the garage. Third page. Photographs of every item with timestamps. The itemized list. Fourth page. Property deed. The house belonging to Jacob and Tori Barrett. Sole owners. No other names. Davis flipped through each page. Chun took notes. Neither of them spoke for about 2 minutes. Davis looked up. Ma'am, based on what I'm seeing, this property belongs to you and your husband. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. My father had a spare key which we revoked. We gave him 7 days written notice to retrieve his belongings. He attempted to enter without permission on day 5. We documented everything. Davis nodded slowly. She looked at her partner. Chun gave a small nod back. Ma'am, this appears to be a civil matter, not criminal. Across the street, my father's truck sat parked at the curb. He was watching. A knock at the front door. Hard. 3 times. Officer Davis walked over and opened it. Ray stood on the porch, chest puffed, jaw locked. He looked past her into the house. Saw the officers. Saw the manila folder. Saw me sitting with my hands folded. Sir, come in, Davis said. We've been reviewing the situation. He stepped inside. Didn't take off his boots. Didn't sit down. That's my stuff she's got in there. I want it back and I want her charged with theft. Davis's voice stayed even. Sir, your daughter provided a 7-day written notice for pickup. She has documentation of your attempt to access the property without authorization. The house is in her name. Legally, this is a civil matter, not a criminal one. Ray's face flushed from the neck up. She changed the locks on me. I had a key to this house. Homeowners have the right to change their locks at any time, sir. He turned to me. Full body pivot. Like a man who just lost his last card and was about to flip the table. After everything I did for you, after I raised you, this is how you treat your father? With cops and locks and $8. I looked at him. Kept my voice level. Kept my breathing steady. You didn't come to my graduation. You asked me for $8,000 3 weeks later. You moved your stuff into my garage without asking. You made a copy of my house key without telling me. You tried to break in when I changed the locks. I paused. Let the silence hold. You kept saying, you understand, right? Yeah, Dad. I finally understand. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. His hands were shaking. Not from sadness. From the kind of anger that has nowhere left to go. He looked at Officer Davis for support. Her face was neutral. Professional. Davis said, Sir, I'd recommend you arrange a mutually agreed time to collect your remaining items. If there's a further dispute about property, you'll need to handle it through civil court. Ray turned and walked out. The front door swung wide. He didn't close it. Truck door slammed. Engine roared. Tires left marks on the asphalt. The street went quiet. Officer Davis gathered the paperwork and handed the folder back to Jake. Ma'am, she said, pausing at the door. For what it's worth, you handled that well. A lot of people don't document things the way you did. Thank you, officer. One more thing. If he returns to the property without your permission, call us. At that point, it's trespassing. They left. I watched the squad car pull away from the window. Then I closed the door, turned the new deadbolt, and pressed my back against the wood. Jake came up behind me. He didn't say anything, didn't touch me. Just stood there close enough that I could feel him. It's done, I said. It's done, he said. I walked into the kitchen. I opened the small drawer next to the stove where I kept rubber bands, spare batteries, a screwdriver. There used to be a brass hook on the inside of the cabinet wall where my father's spare key hung for 2 years. The hook was still there, but the key was gone. I unscrewed it. 2 small screws. Took about 30 seconds. I held it in my palm. A small brass hook. Nothing really. $1.50 at any hardware store. But it had held something that didn't belong there anymore. I dropped it in the kitchen trash can. It landed on top of the coffee grounds with a tiny sound. 3 weeks later, I donated my father's remaining items to Goodwill. He never called to arrange the pickup. Never sent anyone. Never filed the lawsuit Megan warned me about. Just silence. The loudest silence I had ever heard from Ray Barrett. My mother sent a letter. Physical mail. 2 pages. Handwritten on stationery with roses at the borders. The first page was guilt. The second was an ultimatum. When you're ready to apologize, we'll be here. I didn't respond. Cousin Amy called the following week. At the wedding reception, after everyone read your message, Your dad sat alone at table 4 for about 20 minutes. Just sat there staring at his phone. Didn't talk to anyone. Didn't eat. Then he stood up, walked to the microphone, and gave his toast like nothing happened. She paused. He looked old, Tori. Really old. I didn't feel satisfaction when she said that. I didn't feel vindication. I felt something smaller and heavier. Like a door closing on a room I used to live in. I enrolled in an online MBA program that month. First class started in January, covered by the GI Bill. I didn't call home. Home didn't call me. For the first time in 30 years, the silence didn't scare me. It felt like the beginning of something I'd been waiting my whole life to start. That evening, Jake and I sat on the back porch with Biscuit between us. The neighborhood was quiet. Crickets. A distant lawn mower. The kind of ordinary sounds you don't appreciate until the chaos stops. I turned my phone off and set it face down on the armrest. Do you think I went too far? I asked Jake. He looked at me, really looked the way he did when he was choosing his words carefully. You sent facts in a group chat. You changed your own locks. You cooperated fully with the police. Where exactly is too far? I leaned back. Thought about the empty chairs, the garage invasion, the brass key in the trash. Family shows up, I said quietly. Jake nodded. Family shows up. You showed up, Jake. I always will. We sat there until the light faded. Biscuit snored between us. People will call you selfish for setting boundaries. They'll say you're cold, ungrateful, heartless. But here's what I learned standing in that graduation line with no one in my section. The people who love you don't make you earn it. They show up. They show up even when it costs them something. And if they won't show up for you, you have every right to stop showing up for them. That's not cruelty. That's not revenge. That's just finally deciding that your peace matters more than their comfort.